Vertex form and intercept form. Graphing quadratics part 2. Vertex form. Vertex form is y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. The vertex is h and k. H is the opposite sign and k is the same. The axis of symmetry is x equals h, where h is the opposite sign. Graphing in vertex form. Find and plot the vertex. Find an additional point on the parabola by picking a number for x and substituting. Reflect that point over the x-axis of symmetry to get an additional point. Okay, graph, find the domain, range, maximum, and minimum. Okay, so my vertex here is going to be h and k. So it's going to be -3 and 1, because remember it's the opposite sign of h. So -3, 1, 2, 3, 1. My axis of symmetry is going to be x equals -3. Now I need to find an additional point. So I'm going to substitute a value into my original equation of y equals -x plus 3 squared plus 1. So I'm going to pick a value that is near my axis of symmetry. So I'm going to pick the value -2. So, -2 plus 3 squared plus 1. So this will be 1 squared plus 1. So y would equal -1 plus 1, so y would equal 0. So my additional point would be -2, 0. So I'm going to plot that point onto my graph, -2, 0. And then I will mirror that point over. And that is our graph. Okay, let's try the other. Wait. It also is asking us for the domain and range, maximum and minimum. So my domain is all real numbers, and my range is y is less than or equal to 1. And then this has a maximum value at 1. Okay, let's try the next one. So my vertex is at 2, 1, because remember it's the opposite sign of h. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Now we need to find an additional point. By substituting a value into our equation, I'm going to substitute the value 1 into my equation. So if x equals 1, what will y equal? Y equals 4 times 1 minus 2 squared plus 1. So -1 squared plus 1 times 4. So that'd be y equals 4 times 1 plus 1, y equals 5. So my ordered pair would be 1, 5. Near that point over and draw our graph. So my domain would be all real numbers. My range would be y is greater than or equal to 1. And my minimum is 1. Okay, so now let's look. Graphing quadratics in intercept form. So intercept form is y equals a parentheses x minus p in parentheses x minus q parentheses. So the x-intercepts are at p 0 and q 0. So you set the parentheses equal to 0 and solve, and that is how you find your x-intercepts. Your axis of symmetry is halfway between your intercepts. Your x-coordinates of the vertex is halfway between the intercepts. Plug the x-coordinate into the equation and find the y of the vertex. Okay. So, we are going to set each of my parentheses equal to 0 and find our x-intercepts. So, x plus 3 equals 0. And x minus 9 equals 0. So x will equal 3 and x or negative 3, and x will equal 9. So my x-intercepts are at negative 3 and 9. Now I need to find my vertex by finding the value that is in between. So I'm going to take my equation, so the axis of symmetry equals negative 3 plus 9 divided by 2, because it's halfway in between. So my two intercepts added together and then divided by 2, which will equal 3. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 3. So now I can take this value, plug it into my equation, and find y. And that will give me my y value of my axis of symmetry, or my vertex. So, y equals negative, parentheses, 3 plus 3, parentheses, 3 minus 9. Okay, so we'll have 6, and negative 6, negative 1, so we will have positive 12. So our vertex is at is at 3, 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere up here. And that would be our graph. Okay, let's try another. So our intercepts, our x-intercepts. Remember, we set these equal to 0. So x will equal 3 and x will equal negative 2. Then we need to find our axis of symmetry. Okay, we'll find the axis of symmetry by taking taking 3 minus 2 and dividing it by 2. And that will give us 1/2. So our axis of symmetry is at 1/2. So I'm going to substitute 1/2 into my equation to find my y value. So y equals negative 1/2, parentheses 1/2 minus 3, and 1/2 plus 2. Okay? So I'll have negative 1/2 and negative 2 and 1/2 and 2 and 1/2, which will equal 25/8, which equals 3 and 1/8. So my vertex is at 1/2 and 3 and 1/8. And draw our graph. So that is graphing in intercept form and in vertex form. You will have multiple of these questions on your test.